Good morning, everybody. The General Assembly in my very own state of Maryland passed a bill legalizing same-sex marriage, and last week Governor Martin O'Malley signed it. So naturally, the people of Washington County are just thrilled, right? The following calls are taken from editions of Mail Call, printed in the Herald-Mail from February 20th to March 2nd, 2012, which can be viewed online in their entirety at www.herald-mail.com. Before we get to the gay bashing, let's warm up with this first one from Hagerstown. To the person who has a problem with how people dress at church, your comment is the reason why a lot of young people don't go to church. Who cares what they are wearing? God is just happy they are there, and they are there to serve God. Maybe you focus on serving God in the sermon instead of what people are wearing. You should be glad people are even attending, especially if the people who go there hold your same hypocritical views. That's right. Amen, if you'll pardon me for saying so. It's time for the church to stop squabbling over these petty issues like what to wear and unite to focus on what God has called them to do, ruining the lives of gay people. I realize what people do in their own life is their business, but when you're in the public eye, such as if you're a celebrity, a movie star, and so on, that's the breaks you get. I mean, you're bound to get a lot of attention and publicity. But concerning the death of another celebrity, a singer, which is Whitney Houston, I feel people should remember the good things by Whitney Houston. And Joe Paterno, the late great Joe Paterno, but they still shouldn't forget the past, such as the scandal with Joe Paterno. Greencastle, Pennsylvania. When a famous person dies, it seems like we all remember a different face. For Whitney Houston, some remember the bright young pop star of the 80s, some the wigged out crackhead from more recent years. For me, personally, I'll always think of Whitney Houston as she was around 1992, when I was in junior high, and she was the only black girl my pubescent, racist white buddies would admit to wanting to fuck. I'm 75 years old and a Christian. I'm trying hard to understand why so many people in our government cannot understand our Bible and our God. God gave Adam Eve. He said, "Be fruitful and multiply." He did not give him Jack or Tom. If enough states passed these hideous laws, how would we ever field an army? Before you vote, study the candidates. May God have mercy on our country and our world. Hancock. You do realize the law makes same-sex marriage legal, not compulsory. Straight people are still free to marry each other and have kids, and send those kids off to the army because, as you rightly point out, military readiness is and ought to be the paramount concern of every citizen of the United States. To the caller from Falling Waters, West Virginia, that was sort of saying that we need to read the Bible with an open mind about King David and Jonathan. If you remember, they had a covenant. But let's remember one thing. When King David saw Bathsheba on the top of that roof and she was bathing, I don't believe Jonathan was on his mind one bit. Boonesboro. No, you're right. You know who else wasn't on King David's mind? Bathsheba's husband. If we're looking to the Bible for moral guidance, I think there are better role models than the guy who knocked off the spouse of his knocked-up mistress. Wait, there really aren't, are there? I'm calling to thank Governor O'Malley for his stance for equality. Thank you for his concern about that and the fact that every Marylander needs to be created equally. As far as the Bible thumpers are concerned, why do you pick one section out of the Bible and hold on to that, when the Bible also says it's okay to keep slaves, submissive to men? It's time for equality, people. Time to stand up and do the right thing. And I am not a lesbian or a gay person. Hagerstown. See, we're not all bigoted assholes modeling our morality and sexual attitudes after people from the first century around here. There are reasonable people living in this area too. Lots of them. There's me, there's this person, there's... I oppose gay marriage. It's okay to call me a bigot. Halfway. I don't usually ask permission, but thanks. Right on to Donald Hudson's article in the paper on 2/15/12. It's time for all God's cowards to stand up. You can call Governor O'Malley's office at 1-800-811-8336 to let him know your stance against the gay marriage bill. Christians have stood by way too long. Love those who have made their decision to live this lifestyle, but never ever condone it, as it is abomination to God. As for me, I am not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus. I pray this gay marriage never passes. God bless all. Too late!
Maryland, my Maryland.
This same-sex marriage issue is getting to be ridiculous. Just have every state put it to a referendum vote so everyone can vote on it, not just a few who may be getting a reward for their vote. If the people in those states vote for it, fine. If the people in their states say no, then so be it. Those who favor it can then move to those states who do favor it. Hagerstown. Yes, let's allow public referendum, not the courts or the legislature, to decide whether or not gay people have the right to get married. You know, the same way we've decided whether or not to protect other important civil rights, like the right to install slot machines at your racetrack, I guess. Every time we go in a restaurant, the hostess has to seat us right next to the people who are already there, like they want it to be one big family. And then the music's too loud over the intercom, and then there's somebody blowing their nose. Blow your nose in the bathroom, in your car, or at home, not in the restaurant at the table. Monrovia, Maryland. Okay, I feel I have to stick up for the nose blowers here because until a few weeks ago, I was one of them. I've suffered from nasal allergies my entire life, and I've spent many, many days wiping and blowing my nose over and over and over again, so often that excusing myself to the bathroom every time just wasn't an option. It's exhausting, it's embarrassing, and it sucks. Recently I started going to an allergist, and all I can tell the person who invented Flonase is, if you ever want some no-strings-attached head, hit me up, because I owe you one. Life without a persistently runny nose is awesome. Life with one can be pretty shitty sometimes, so the next time someone blows their nose near you, stop and think about how terrible that person probably feels at that moment before you start complaining, you fucking piece of shit asshole. This is in response to the gay marriage article on the front page of today's paper in Hagerstown. Some people are weeping today, while you say others are laughing and cheering. Shame on Maryland. Hagerstown. Let the people who have a problem with treating gay people equally under the laws of their state keep weeping. Let the people who begrudge thousands of their fellow Marylanders gaining a basic civil right that never should have been denied them in the first place keep weeping. Shame on them. Shame on Maryland for not doing this last year. Shame on every state that hasn't done it yet. And shame on every single person who signs the petition to have this law overturned. Long as we're tossing shame around. And finally, from halfway, when I read that all of our local delegates to Annapolis voted against same-sex marriage, I think how backward our community has become. I ask myself, why do these talented, intelligent men want everyone to follow their beliefs? But it is surprising how little this affects me, because in the quiet of my room at night, I kneel and say, please protect me from your followers. Amen. It won't work, he never answers prayers. As for how backward our community is, keep things in perspective. I mean, yeah, sure, for the United States in 2012, Washington County is, shall we say, regressive in its attitude toward homosexuality. But if our friends and neighbors held that exact same attitude in, say, the early Middle Ages, they'd be downright liberal. See? It always helps to maintain perspective. Thanks for watching.